Jiang Zemin, leader in the mass killing of innocents.
By David Mattis, human rights lawyer, Epoch Times.
Commentary. The death of Jiang Zemin, former leader of the Chinese Communist Party, reminds us of the instrumental role he played in the mass killing of prisoners of conscience for their organs. That mass killing would not have occurred without the decision of the Chinese Communist Party in 1999 to repress the practice of Falun Gong, a decision that Jiang sparked and led. That repression led in turn to mass demonstrations of practitioners bewildered that an innocent set of exercises with a spiritual foundation that the Chinese Communist Party had earlier encouraged would suddenly become subject to party repression. These demonstrations further led to mass arrests and arbitrary indefinite detentions of those who would not renounce Falun Gong and turn on their fellow practitioners. The reason for the party repression of Falun Gong was the popularity of the practice. At the time of the repression, there were considerably more practitioners than members of the Communist Party. The spiritual beliefs of Falun Gong are non-political. But that meant that their beliefs are not communist. And that, for the party, was anathema. Publicly, the party could not justify the repression on the basis of the popularity of the practice. The party needed a pretext. That pretext became a campaign of vilification and demonization of Falun Gong, which had nothing to do with the reality of Falun Gong and everything to do with the party needed to squelch any belief that was not adoration of themselves. The divorce between the reality of Falun Gong and propaganda about it generated demonstrations from the many who knew better. Jiang as well continued the shift of the Chinese Communist Party away from socialism to capitalism, a shift initiated by former President and Party Secretary Deng Xiaoping. The shift led to privatization and a withdrawal of funds from the government sector, including the health sector. China began transplantation without a donation system. Organs for transplantation, with the odd exception, came from prisoners sentenced to death. With the shift in China from socialism to capitalism and the withdrawal of government funds from the health sector, hospitals needed a new source of funds. With the mass, arbitrary, indefinite detention of demonized Falun Gong, the hospitals found that source, the organs of Falun Gong practitioners. That source became not just a stopgap to compensate for the funds withdrawn by the government, but a bonanza. The hospital system quickly realized that the arbitrarily indefinitely detained demonized Falun Gong population was so large that selling their organs could become a profitable global business. Hospitals and brokers started advertising worldwide in many languages about the availability of organs on demand at sizable but fixed prices. New transplant hospitals and new transplant wings of existing hospitals were built to take advantage of this seemingly endless source of organs. Significant numbers of new transplant staff were trained not just in China, but globally, to work in this new industry. That industrialization of the selling of organs became, for the health system, an addiction. New organs were constantly needed to keep the machinery in motion. Eventually, the killings of Falun Gong for their organs became so large and the repression of Falun Gong so effective that the Falun Gong population in indefinite detention depleted. The depletion coincided with the mass detention of Uyghurs starting in Xinjiang in 2017. The organs of Uyghurs, shipped throughout China, became the primary source of transplants. None of this would have happened without Jiang. The contest for responsibility for the mass killing of innocents in China has many combatants. Yet in this gory history, Jiang is a leader. Without his dragging the party into the repression of Falun Gong, the mass killing of innocents, prisoners of conscience, for their organs, would never have happened. Because Jiang has died, it is too late to bring him to justice for his crimes. But it will never be too late to remember who he was and what he did, the untold misery he inflicted on innocents, the crimes he inflicted against humanity, against us all.